Hi there, just organizing the angle. Okay, I think that looks okay. Can't get it straight. Okay, excellent. Okay, welcome. I'm just going to start recording on the other apparatus. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening and welcome to today. Thank you for joining me on day 2 of the 5-day 5 poses yin yoga challenge. I'm Annchen from yinyogaannchen and thanks for joining me today. So once again, I am here talking to you from YouTube as well as Facebook. So greetings to everybody who's watching me. And today, as the rest of the week, we are going to be exploring 5 of the 7 archetypal yin yoga poses. And during the whole of the week, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be exploring the target areas, the target areas of the different poses, and we're going to be looking at the muscles, and then we're going to use a practical exploration of each pose so we can explore variations and get to understand the joints and the different segments, the different spinal segments that are included in these poses. Because it's quite easy to identify where the muscles are, but it's not as easy to explain and understand where we are, why we can't move in a certain pose. And a lot of the time that is because of compression. And compression, I really believe that we can understand compression by actually doing the pose and exploring and looking at it. And it's really important to understand what compression is, because then it can really help to avoid both frustration and injury. And so basically what we'll do with each class is we'll start the class by exploring variations. And then once you found the variation that suits you, then we will stay in that for 5 minutes. So let's get started. Today's focus is the saddle. And as the saddle needs what we call the internal rotation of the femur in the hip socket, so that is the angle of the femur, which is your leg, into the hip socket, it's really important to be able to identify where that is. And you know, it's quite a difficult thing to understand unless you are actually looking at a skeleton. So my proposal today and in all the other days is actually to experiment with our body, to look at our body, to try and understand it, and from then we can move forward both in our own practice and also when we're teaching. So although the saddle pose often includes lying back, because that's the full version of the pose, what I would like to propose is actually to start with the first step. And the first step is actually, once we can discover and understand how we sit in the first step, then we will be able to do the full version of the saddle or not, depending on our body. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, first of all, is this is the testing of the 2 variations to find out which one works for us. So come into a seated position. And when I mean seated, I mean sitting on your heels. So this is the first thing. So the first thing I'd like you to do when you're sitting on your heels is check in and say to yourself, is this comfortable? For some people, this could be comfortable. If this is uncomfortable, I want you to explore a few options. So option number 1 would be to open your knees. For many people, by opening the knees, it reduces the pressure and they can sit more comfortably. For other people, for example, perhaps the angle of your foot is very uncomfortable. So what you could try to do is you could take a little blanket and place the little blanket, you could roll it up like this, and place the blanket under your ankles. So like that. Okay, because some of us perhaps have bones that are crushing into the mat. So try that, open your knees as well, and see how that feels. And if that is still not possible, what I would also say in that situation is grab a block. Grab a block and sit on the block. So you could have your knees open like this. So if you could all just experiment with that, starting sitting on your heels, is that comfortable? And if it's not comfortable, then look for the option that works best for you. This is what we call the Caesar pose. So what I'd like you to do, what I'd encourage you to do, especially if you have any knee issues, start with this pose. Because the full version of the saddle is actually quite intense in terms of the knees. So if you are feeling that this is enough for you, I would encourage you to stay in this option. Okay, so this is the option of Caesar. So just once again, sitting on your heels, opening your knees, placing a blanket underneath your ankles, and lastly, the other option is actually sitting on a block. Okay, so that's variation 1 with all the different options to make it more accessible for your body. Okay, so from here, if that was comfortable for you, and the big thing is that if that was comfortable for you. So if that was comfortable for you, then come into this position where you're opening your legs, opening your knees, opening your knees and sitting between your feet. Can you see I'm sitting between my feet? Okay, and then just check in with that. Is that comfortable for you? So this is, so if you look at my feet, you can see that my feet are parallel to my hips. And so that shows that I have a little bit of internal rotation. So internal rotation, we can actually look at by looking at the feet, but also looking at how the tibia, so this joint here, is moving, how it is moving to the side. So there are other people who have a greater internal rotation. And so, for example, and I have to show you in a way that is not my body, because this is not possible for me. So, for example, you could have people that have their foot flexed, and some people could even bring their foot out to the side. Perhaps you are one of those people, and that means that you have a greater internal rotation, and so when you sit in between your feet, it could be quite comfortable for you, or perhaps it isn't. It depends how it feels for you. Remember, this with yin, we are always focusing on how it feels for you. It's not about copying me, for example. It's focusing on how you should feel in this pose. So decide if this is comfortable for you to sit between your feet, because remember, we're going to be sitting between our feet for 5 minutes. So if this is not comfortable for you, then please come back to sitting on your heels. Right. Okay, so that's the end of the little discussion, the little introduction, and the discovery of which variation works for you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to dive into choosing the variation that works for you. And before I continue, just to remind you of the target areas of this pose. So when we talk about the target area of a pose in yin, we're talking about when you sit in a pose, you are focusing on a certain area of the body where you would like to feel a stretch. So of course, with the muscles, it's quite easy to feel that. So if we are sitting in the Caesar position or the other position, the antler, the area we should be feeling a stretch in is in the quadriceps. So these muscles at the top of the thighs. And then, of course, you can imagine we're going to be working on the joints of the knee, of the ankles, and, of course, of the toes. So now once you are aware of that target area, that is actually what you should be feeling in the 5 minutes. If at any stage when you're in this position and 5 minutes is not up and you're feeling that it's painful, please come out. Otherwise, hang in and enjoy the sensation. Maybe this is the first time you've ever done it. Okay, so let's get into the position. Remember, and let me just remind you, because this is really important. If we are in a position where we are sitting between the feet, remember when you sit between the feet, there is more tension on the knees. Sitting on the heels with the knees open, there is less tension. There is less, sorry, I shouldn't say tension. There's less pressure on the knees. So if you do have any issue with your knees, I would really recommend not trying to sit between your knees. Of course, it's always a recommendation, but remember, and especially in yin, it's really important not to think, I feel pain and I must hold and I must, go for it. This is yin, and yin is different because yin is looking at stressing joints. Yin is not looking at, pushing to the maximum. It's actually the opposite way around because we should be listening to our body. So that said, the little lecture. So please come to the position that is comfortable for you. And we're going to start. We're going to sit here for 5 minutes. And at the end, you will hear this sound. And that will be the sound for you to know that you should come out of the pose very, very slowly. Okay, so get into your comfortable position. Remember, either sitting on your heels, opening the legs, opening the knees, or even sitting up on a bolster, or else coming between your feet. So let's start with the 5 minutes. So it's really important here just to check in with the feeling that you have in the quadriceps. Remember, if you feel a nice stretch along the quadriceps, the stretch or any painful feeling that you have on the outside or the inside of your knee, that is a warning sign from your body that you should actually change, because this is not a good position for your body. Take a deep breath in. If you want to close your eyes. And what I'd suggest you do is just check in with your breath. Remember, yin is a mindful practice. And also, it is a way not only to relax the body, but it's also a way to relax the mind. So there are various things that I suggest when you are first starting with yin or you're not accustomed to it. And that could be focusing on sensations in your body. So sensations could be how you're feeling, how the stretch is feeling. So when you start in a pose, often there is a resistance from the body. Perhaps it's something new and the body is automatically reacting against that. In that occasion, what I would suggest you do is just try to relax, and by breathing into the area where you feel a little bit of tenderness, this could help to alleviate that sense of tension. What I also suggest, and if you'd like to, we can just focus on that just for a minute, would be a breathing technique, a simple breathing technique of breathing in through the nose, counting to 4, and breathing out through the nose, counting for 4, or through the mouth, whichever feels comfortable for you. So before we start, just exhaling completely, and then inhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. And now you can continue or just return to your natural breathing, noticing your body, noticing sensations in your body. If at any time you feel tension, please slowly move out. If you feel pain, tingling sensations, especially in the knees, then definitely move out. So that's 5 minutes. So what I would like you to do now is just, if you want to, I just push myself up slowly, and very, very slowly. Remember, we're coming out of a yin pose. That's quite intense for the knees. So very, very slowly straighten your legs. And if you want to do any groaning, that's totally acceptable. And just relaxing here for a moment. Then we're going to lie down. So come lying down on your back. And this is what we call the rebound pose in yin. And the rebound pose in yin is often between poses, or it could be between asymmetrical poses. And it is often the time where we actually feel the effect of the pose. We could feel it in different ways. Perhaps you could feel a warm sensation. Perhaps you could feel cool, tingling sensation. That's the physical side. But sometimes it can be emotional. You could feel quite happy, but you could also feel vulnerable. And this is where I come to the comments on the connective tissue, because in yin, the focus is on stressing connective tissue. And often what happens when we come out of a yin pose is that because we have stressed the connective tissue, it's possible that some type of emotion, it can be some traumatic or it can be stress that has been stored in the connective tissue, is released. If you think about it, the emotions that we feel from the nervous system often go into the muscles, and from there they go into the connective tissue. And there's not really any way to get those emotions out, except for yin. In yin, we are actually stressing that connective tissue. So sometimes people, when they come out of a yin pose, they can suddenly feel this outburst of crying or sadness, and that is effectively the emotions that are going to be released, that have been stored up in the body, in the muscles, in the connective tissue. So it's a great sense of release. I'm just going to leave you for a minute just to breathe, relax, and notice these sensations in the body. And now slowly bend your knees and bring yourself up to a seated position, whichever way feels good for you. So thank you very much for joining me today for this quick exploration of the initial phase of the saddle pose. Please remember, if you're interested in more information, I send out an email every day which has information on the anatomy, on the muscles, and also it has the pictures of the variations. So if you are interested in yin yoga, if you are a beginner to yin yoga, or you're interested in teaching, I would really recommend that you sign up for the challenge. The sign-up link is in the events in Facebook, and it's also in the description below in YouTube. And thank you, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Please join me tomorrow for day 3 of this challenge. And in day 3, we're going to be looking at one of my favorite poses, which is the archetype of caterpillar. We're going to be exploring 3 wonderful variations. And that's all I can say. Just have a wonderful day, and take care, and have a lovely evening. Good night. Bye-bye.